Hello and welcome to the Nerd Ninja Horror Show. I am your Fright Master, Freddy, ready to journey into the beautiful, blood-filled world of horror. Joining me as always is my ever-threatening co-host, Ash Von Horror.
Today we have a big show in store for you guys and you heard me, two home video releases this week. But before we get there, we're going to let Freddy get us started with a little Netflix find. So Freddy, what do you got for us?
There's been a ton of cool movies hitting Netflix lately, and one that we checked out was the Henry Rollins starring film He Never Died. In the movie, we follow lonely Jack, who is a recluse in his apartment with almost no social skills or emotions towards anyone. In his head, he constantly hears the sounds of war and chaos, driving him mad, but he never lets any emotion show. We discovered these voices are from centuries past, as he has been alive since the dawn of time, living off of human flesh and blood. However, his attitude towards his methods of feasting have gone from attacking people to simply paying off medical school students to keep him fed. He has to deal with keeping himself from his hunger while also finding out he has a daughter who won't let well enough alone. Now, Ash, I've started hearing about this movie, I guess, maybe a month ago. And then all of a sudden it just popped on Netflix. By the way, there's a ton of horror movies just popping up on Netflix right now. Definitely a lot worth checking out. This one, however, was one of the best ones I saw. What'd you think after watching it?
I love this movie.
Right?
It's so interesting, and it's definitely different. It's not like your typical horror movie. It's definitely different.
It's definitely more of a drama in a sense with horror elements.
And dark humor.
There's a lot of dark humor because Henry Rollins, by the way, if you guys don't know, of course, punk rocker extraordinaire from Black Flag. It's that song, I Hate You. Like, he's awesome. He's kind of blowing up in the horror community, especially after being in Feast, John Gulager's film. And, of course, he was in Wrong Turn 2, directed by Joe Lynch. This movie, though, like I said, he shows almost no emotion because he's so severely tied from everything. But he's such a badass in this movie. When someone's messing with him, he's just like, okay, sure, yeah. Breaks some fingers, gouges some eyes, whatever.
He lets them hit him in the face at least first, and then
he gives him a fair chance.
Okay.
He's like, all right, if you're going to mess with me, I guess I can, tear your leg off or something. And he does some really messed up stuff in this movie. It's so gloriously done, too.
I love this movie.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
It's directed by Jason Krasik, I believe is his name. Mm-hmm. And it hit, I believe, at the festival circuit around this time last year. And ever since then, it's kind of been culminating like a cult fan base at festivals and stuff.
Didn't they do a Kickstarter for this movie?
They did do a Kickstarter for it, yeah. And now it's actually being developed as a television show because the movie is very open-ended. Mm-hmm. As you go through the movie, his daughter comes in his life, and he's having to kind of deal with his demons and unfold his past, especially...
And you're finding out who he is.
You're finding out who he is. I mean, there's an idea that possibly he is what people in the world conceive as a vampire. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't like the term vampire because he's not a vampire. In fact, it goes so far as he at one point says, I don't know how long I've been around, but if it means anything, I was in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And it plays a huge part in the biblical sense of
who he is.
Murder and just death and chaos through the ages. And it gets so crazy because he actually kind of flirts with death the whole movie. He kind of sees this cloaked guy who's always there
creepy
waiting for him.
Old man.
Yeah. And he reminded me of the way they portrayed death in the Supernatural TV series. Mm-hmm. Kind of just a dude, long trench coat and stuff, hat, just chilling, waiting. And he's always kind of...
Never saying anything.
Yeah, he's always kind of flirting with Henry Rollins in the movie, and it drives Henry Rollins mad.
Yeah, because when you see him in the movie, you don't know exactly who he is until, as it keeps going, you're figuring out who... I thought it was Lucifer at first.
Yeah.
That's who I was assuming it was
Well,
first.
And then there's the whole line of dialogue near the end where they actually throw out, like, are you a vampire? Because he's sucking on blood and eating
human
people.
Flesh.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't like that term, but yeah, sure, I kind of am.
He even makes a vampire reference in the movie.
That's true, yeah. And it's a kind of a world where he's the only one of his kind as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think if we're going to open it up to a TV series, it'd be really interesting to see what they could do with that, what other
There's
monsters
plenty
in
of
the
things
world.
they could do with this,
Yeah.
especially since in the film, I don't want to say who he is, but when you learn and you hear about his past and you get glimpses of the past, there's so much they can do with the past portion of him.
Very much a Constantine, like Hellblazer-like character, especially with like the biblical sense of it. So there's a lot they could do with it. And Henry Rollins says he's willing to come back for a TV series should that get made. I mean, honestly, I'd be down with just a movie. I will say the only thing that kind of sucks about it, but it is also kind of cool, is it literally just kind of just ends. There's this epic moment where he breaks down, lays out everything in this epic monologue about his life and why is it about him and why did God do this to him. And, you know, his friend is like, we got to get your daughter to the hospital. And he's like
having a meltdown.
yeah, he's having a meltdown.
The first time you see him actually
Yeah.
like show emotion too.
And he just goes, okay. And he just leaves. And that's the end of the movie.
Even the other guy was just like, what?
Yeah, the guy he's like torturing is like, what's going on? Which, by the way, I did not tell you the ending of the movie, really. It's just
No.
that's how it ends. I'm not giving away what is his deal or what's going on with him.
Suggesting what he's saying
Yeah.
or anything like that.
So I don't want to give away too much, but definitely go check it out. It's on Netflix. It's called He Never Died. And you found out some interesting stuff
Yes.
from the dialogue, correct?
In the dialogue of the movie, I won't say specifically which part into the film, he makes a reference of talking about impaling people, which is a reference to Vlad the Impaler. So people are talking about the TV series, saying that if he's suggesting that he's who we know as Dracula, they could easily make a TV series off him being Vlad.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially since they make a lot of vampire references.
I want to say really quick, Ricky Burke, please allow me to introduce myself. I love he's playing on the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil right there. One of my favorite and first bands I ever heard, by the way. That song could easily be played along with this movie.
Yeah.
So it is one of the best movies I've seen just kind of go to Netflix, I guess, in a long time. Which, like I said, there's a ton of movies going on Netflix right now. This one's called He Never Died. There's Mexico Barbaro, and then
They're adding a lot of more horror movies.
yeah,
Finally.
it's becoming not a dumping ground. I don't want to say, but a lot of the not studio but film festival movies that are getting a lot of praise and stuff like that. They're finally finding a market for themselves as opposed to just being straight to DVD. And in some cases, like Deathgasm at Walmart went in as Heavy Metal Apocalypse because they couldn't get the rights to it. Or Late Phases, that werewolf movie I really like, being called Night of the Werewolf in some places. This is a really cool way to get the movies out there under the pretenses of what they were instead of trying to cater to, let's say, Mom and Joe consumer, you know?
Or being censored.
Or censored, exactly. So, and this one has some sweet posters for it, too. There's one where it's basically just Henry
Where it
Rollins
shows the
with the
wings.
wings, but there's another one that's just got bullet holes in it and bingo. That's the other thing, too. This movie is funny as hell.
Dark humor.
Because to pass the time, he plays bingo. He'll play like 20 cards at once. And the thing is, reason being is if he sees young flesh, he kind of gets a hunger for it. And so when you're playing bingo, obviously there's nothing but old people. So you're just going to play with the old people and not feel hungry because you see all the wrinkles on neck. Obviously not that much blood. So
There's plenty of blood in the movie, though.
God, it is some brutal stuff. It's not
like
over the top.
It's not like
crazy blood.
Saw gore or
Yeah.
Hostile gore.
It's there when it's needed, and it's fun. You know, it's not like, oh my God, gushes everywhere.
It's kind of funny when he does it, though.
That's true. Also, this one is a little weird but interesting bit. The guy who plays the medical student that sells him like parts and stuff like that, his name's Boo Boo Stewart. Which when I saw that pop up in the credits, I'm like, is that for real? He's
Yeah, that's his
actually
name.
he's Warpath from X-Men, the Days of Future Past. And he also plays Seth from Twilight. I don't know jack about Twilight, but I know
He
you've
knows
read some of the
everything
books.
about Twilight.
Come on, all right, give us a little bit about
he's
Seth
the,
here. Then.
He's the younger werewolf in Twilight. That's, if I'm not mistaken, is the brother to Leah, which is like the only female werewolf in the series.
You're so cool.
So cool. So awesome.
That's right, folks. We just had Twilight talk on the horror show, but we're not condoning Twilight in any way, shape, or form. Unless, are you?
Freddie loves it. He's just in denial.
Sure, apparently. Whatever. Dear God. But definitely go check out He Never Died, starring Henry Rollins, directed by Jason Krasinski, I believe. Get enough views on that. Hopefully we can get that TV series going on that.
So hitting Netflix directly is the slasher thriller Hush, given to us by Mike Flanagan, director of Oculus. Maddie is a deaf woman who is also unable to speak due to a disease she had as a child. She's a writer who is trying to complete her second novel in a secluded cabin in the woods when a mysterious man with a crossbow begins hunting down her neighbors. Learning of Maddie's disabilities, he toys with her every chance he gets, torturing her until he is ready to make the final kill. With only her vision and wits, Maddie must outsmart the killer in order to survive.
So I saw Oculus in theaters, and that was the movie with Kieran Gillen from Doctor Who, and it was the mirror, basically. Through time, this mirror was like the source of
haunted.
all evil. It's haunted. And I remember seeing that because at the time, Blumhouse was pumping out so many things, and I was just like, Blumhouse is really becoming that new horror house for everything coming out. I want to check it out. So it looked intriguing, went and saw it, and it was the most depressing movie I ever walked out of. I can't say I liked it.
A depressing horror movie.
But I mean, dear God, like I walked out like I don't know what to do with life. What the hell did I just watch? And so it was an interesting start for Mike Flanagan for me. That was the first time I was introduced to his stuff. So when they said Hush, which is going to be direct to Netflix, I didn't really know much about it other than they had the promo of the killer in that really weird blank
I saw
mask.
the poster where it showed her face up close and it shows him in the back looking like something from Strangers.
Exactly. And I thought it was interesting because I'm like, oh, you got this is a horror movie about girl trapped in the house who's deaf and she can't speak. Then you also got Fede Alvarez's Don't Breathe, which is about a killer who is blind. So, all right, that's the interesting kind of way the horror world's going right now. So we sat down and watched it. And for me personally, it's a really well-made movie. There's one or two things where I'm like, that doesn't seem to go anywhere. There's a subplot with the boyfriend that I thought was going to play in with the killer. But the killer doesn't have anything to do with her. He just kind of pops up.
You don't even know his motive or anything.
It almost seems like he's coming out of another slasher movie to me because he's going around killing other people, and this girl that the main character knows, Maggie, she goes up on the windows like screaming for her life as the dude's like killing her with a crossbow, and Maddie, sorry, she's like doing dishes and stuff.
Yeah, as her friend's being brutally murdered behind her.
And so it's like, oh my God, you kind of just came out of another horror movie and you're into this one now. So I know I had a couple problems with it, but what did you think?
I liked it, but it was one of those movies where it could have been better or they could have done better. And I get really frustrated when they have female leads that are kind of stupid, which I know she's deaf and mute, but that doesn't mean she's dumb. And she has moments where she could have easily really outsmarted him, or, you know, it could have played out differently. And I guess maybe for like anxiety purposes, they did it the way they did in the film, which it was just really frustrating.
Well, that's the
I
thing.
was yelling at her more than anything.
I was exactly like me too, and I felt like an idiot myself because I'm like back and forth, like, why is she being so stupid? Oh wait, she can't hear anything and she can't say anything. But I'm also like, well, I mean,
there was those moments where you're just like, dude,
you're really confused with yourself almost because you're thinking, okay, obviously I wouldn't do that if I was in that situation like most horror fans do. But also you're like, I don't have that disability. I don't know what it's like to be like that.
And it shows her kind of going off vibrations and the way her house is set up, her phone's set up,
Definitely
the fire
some
alarm
interesting
is all set
things.
up.
But and that's the thing too, is like he disables everything. She's cut out completely. Like this girl relies so much on technology to get around and survive in that atmosphere, and he's cut everything off. He could have easily dispatched her like nothing, but he toyed with her. And now you were talking about how you like that kind of stuff.
I like what did they call it? Cat and mouse
Cat and
game?
mouse movies. Yeah.
I like it when you have a killer who slow tortures you without physically ever having to touch you. It's like a mental game, an emotional turmoil type going thing.
Right.
But I like that about these types of movies because it kind of fits in the same genre as The Strangers or You're Next, where they're being hunted by someone and you don't know who they are. You don't know what the motive is. You have no idea why they're there, except for in this case, it's one person and one killer.
And that was another complaint I had. I would like to have seen where he came from, why he was doing what he's doing.
A little bit of his backstory.
Kind of his motives. I also thought it was kind of funny. Katie Siegel, who plays Maddie, she played Marisol Chavez from Oculus, but she also wrote Hush.
Oh, she wrote.
Yeah, she wrote the movie. And I thought that was really cool. And the killer's John Gallagher Jr., who played Emmett in 10 Cloverfield Lane. And it's a complete...
Least intimidating person ever.
But also it's a complete 360 character change from like that movie to this one. He's pretty sadistic in this one. He's a little idiotic at times, which you kind of see a little bit of Emmett kind of in his character. But at the same time, he's very... It kind of reminded me of some of the killers from the original Alone in the Dark. Which, if you guys have ever seen that movie, Donald Pleasance, is basically a bunch of inmates escape from an asylum, start killing everybody. And some of the killers are kind of like that, like playful, but also kind of like, I'm going to play dumb while you're looking, and then I'll stab you in the back.
Especially when he finds out she's deaf, and he's just sitting there like, ooh, what can I do
And that's
with
the thing,
this?
is like a good, like maybe 10, 15 minutes of him is him in the actual mask, and then she says, I haven't seen what your face looks like.
She writes it on, was it with lipstick onto the window? She's telling him,
I won't tell if you go away.
Yeah, I won't tell if you go away. I didn't see your face. And he just looks at her and pulls off the mask. And she just sits there and stares at him. He's like, not if you understand me. Yeah. I loved when he did that because that was kind of intense. When he's just staring at her. I like that type of thing, though.
Well, and the thing, too, with this, now, I have a problem a little bit with the pacing of the movie watching on Netflix. Now, Grant, I think a lot of us can admit seeing a movie with an audience that reacts to it definitely enhances this. And I watched this alone. You watched it alone?
I watched it by
myself.
myself.
And so it's cool to see things at the touch of your fingers, but I think this would have worked better for me had I seen it in a theater with an audience.
And
it would have built the dread, and as opposed to me just kind of sitting there. And two, I guess it's my own fault. I kind of watched it in the middle of the day, and it was just something to do before work.
I think it was like in the evening when I watched it.
I definitely think this movie benefits for sitting in a dark room kind of deal. Build that dread. It's not a bad movie. It's very well competently directed.
It has its moments where you're just like, really?
And I think that benefits from a crowd. So I will say definitely see it. See it with some people maybe, but not just like, every day someone is just going to watch a movie. Watch it with some horror fans. So it's interesting.
Sit in a dark room when you're watching it.
Exactly. And so it's interesting because to some degree, like both Oculus and Hush, I'm interested to see what Mike Flanagan does with the rest of his career. I know I did not see Ouija because I thought everyone said it was the stupidest movie they've ever seen. But he's directing Ouija too, and it's already in the can basically, and Blumhouse is talking about it like it's the next big thing. So, and that's the thing I think I see a lot coming out. Like last week we talked about with Annabelle 2, the director of Lights Out is going to do that, and that could be a better movie. I think we're going to start seeing this thing where the sequels with these certain directors become better movies than the previous one.
Usually it's the opposite way around. The original's better, and then the sequels are usually crap.
Exactly. But I think not obviously with Hush and Oculus, they're really good movies. But with Ouija, it was definitely just like, we got this name brand, throw it out there. Now that the name brand's out there, we're going to throw in a real director to like tackle it.
Actually give it a good plot,
exactly.
Give it good motive.
So I'm really psyched to see what he does, especially after this movie. It's definitely going to be interesting to see if he combines like the supernatural of Oculus with the tension building of Hush to create something for Ouija. I'm hoping for something along the lines of The Conjuring or Insidious at that point.
More Conjuring, less Insidious.
I love Insidious, but I know you hate it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Insidious. And with Hush, for those who don't know, there's in the movie, Stephen King's book is glimpsed at the beginning of the movie, which is Mr. Mercedes. If you don't know what Mr. Mercedes is, it's about a story about a psychotic killer whose motives are never really explained, just similar to Hush. And Stephen King's actually a fan of Oculus. So it was kind of like a nice
that was what got me to see Oculus. Was anytime Stephen King says best movie I've seen, I'm definitely gonna go watch it because that's how I got an Evil Dead. Also, I mean, it's Stephen King.
How I got to watch The Witch.
Right. Era Gray, yes, Annabelle 2 is happening. Same director as Lights Out, which that trailer just hit a couple weeks ago. Atomic Monster looks pretty awesome.
Seriously, go watch the trailer. It's all over YouTube
lots
right
of
now.
hope for that.
I'm excited for that.
I can't wait. So especially if he's tackling Annabelle 2, I'm down for it. Lots of cool things with the first Annabelle, but yeah. So I'll definitely say
do a lot with it now.
Definitely say go check out Hush. It's also on Netflix Instant. Like I said, possibly see it with some other horror fans or sit in the dark all alone.
I kind of like the idea of them sitting in the dark alone. Get their anxiety pumping first and then sit there and watch the movie. Right,
definitely. All right, guys. So, special week this week. Are you ready for 2 home video releases because they are gory, great, bloody, spectacular sequels belonging to two of the most classic horror movies ever filmed. First up, we have Bride of Re-Animator, brought to us courtesy of Arrow Video, now out on Blu-ray. This sequel to Stuart Gordon's classic H.P. Lovecraft adaptation follows what happens to our deadly doctors Dan Kane and Herbert West. After the carnage at Miskatonic Tech, Dan and Herbert have fled into the warring jungles of Peru, where they can get access to copious amounts of dead bodies, as well as exotic, venomous poisons to use in Herbert's reagent.
They return to their states after having been cleared of all charges of manslaughter and continue their work in reanimation. Dan simply wants to bring back the love of his life, Megan, from death, while Herbert has gone a little insane, creating all kinds of monstrosities from severed body parts and dead animals. Together, they create a new life from many dead body parts and the heart of Megan. Dan gets back a monstrosity that his love, Megan, and Herbert achieves his wildest dreams with a barrage of bodies in their wake, as well as OFOs on their tail.
All right, so I want to start off with this because I know you are not the biggest fan of Bride of Re-Animator.
Not really.
But I do want to say Bride of Re-Animator and Re-Animator are two separate beasts in my mind. And the reason being is Re-Animator, classic film made by Stuart Gordon, produced by Brian Usna, lots of awesome monster effects. And of course, we have Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West. With Bride of Re-Animator, Brian Usna, the producer, wanted to veer off into his own directing of movies. And he got in contact with a Japanese company, and they said, we'll make 2 movies with you, but you have to make a Re-Animator sequel. He said, as long as we do my movie first and then Bride of Re-Animator, I'll do it. And from that, we got Society, which personally for me is one of the best horror sci-fi movies I have ever seen. If you guys haven't seen Brian Usna's Society, it's basically there is something wrong with the rich in America, and they are feeding off the poor. And
that sounds like a real life situation.
yeah, it's very much kind of like a more messed up version they live. And what the importance of that is, you get the effects of Screaming Mad George and his monster effects. Both he and Brian Usna are huge dolly realist artistic types. They love that kind of art. So for this, he brought Screaming Mad George into the Re-Animator universe. And with the first Re-Animator, you kind of have a lot of dead bodies, kind of zombies, like crazy. This one, we have amalgamations of body parts because Herbert is going insane.
Like
and
the arm and the leg.
Yes. And so in this one of my favorites personally is he takes a bunch of wires and fingers and puts eyeballs on them, and it starts moving around like crazy. That thing is epic looking. And you also get a lot of the earlier guys from KMBFX group like Robert Kurtzman, Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger. They were in the Screaming Mad George shop. So with this movie, we got a lot of crazier effects, more insane dolly, if you will. And also with this one, the first Re-Animator, it was about bringing the dead back to life, whereas this one was more in tune with the ripoff, what Re-Animator kind of was in H.P. Lovecraft's mind of a ripoff of Frankenstein.
Yeah, like a parody version of Frankenstein.
They actually create life, and it's so crazy because they take all these different body parts. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is Herbert West is taking all these different body parts and describing them to Dan, like the legs of a mistress of the night,
the feet of a ballerina.
The feet of a ballerina. And my favorite part is he takes the hand and he goes, perhaps a writer, and he kind of tightens it, and the hand goes like this, and he goes, actually, a murderer. And they give it the heart of Meg, who died in the first movie, Dan's true love. And with that, they create the Bride of Re-Animator. So with all that being said, this movie was kind of just to get Society made, but in its own defense has its own merits. You don't have the stylistic look or as much as the underlying comedy as Stuart Gordon had. It's very much more overt, but the effects are top notch. And if anything, this movie is amazing with effects. Now,
Yeah, the effects are amazing. I'll give you that.
with the Arrow Blu-ray release, I love that it's cleaned up because of how much cheaper it was shot and done than the original Re-Animator. The only thing we've ever had is the VHS and a bare bones artisan DVD release. And that thing looks terrible. I own it because I wanted to watch Bride of Re-Animator whenever I felt like it. But the transfer is beautiful. My ramblings aside, Ash, whatever you have to say about it, let's hear it.
It's not bad. like you were saying. I just prefer.
It's not bad. It's not good.
I just prefer Re-Animator, and
That's
obviously I have the
understandable.
book sitting in front of me. It's based off H.P. Lovecraft's his story of Re-Animator. But for those who don't know, both movies are loosely based off
Yes.
the actual story. The first Re-Animator is actually based off the first portion of the story. The second one's based off the second portion, loosely based. And then, of course,
Very
the third
loosely
one,
based.
the reason why it's called Beyond is because it has nothing to do with
Also
any of it.
because Beyond Re-Animator is garbage.
Yes, and it's completely beyond H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
That's why they call it Beyond.
Now, of course, we have Barbara Crampton, who is a legend in of herself in the horror industry. She was going to return as Meg in the sequel for the cameo, basically, of becoming the bride. But her agent was like, that's too much of a small part. You're too big for that now. So we get Kathleen Kinmont, who plays Gloria from Halloween 4. And she replaced her as,
Just kind of gave her a different face.
Yeah, and she still has the mannerisms and stuff, I guess, loosely. At least they've said that in interviews and stuff. But she really brings this sweet innocence to it because she's dying the whole movie. And then when she gets made into the bride, my favorite part is when, other than, of course, the description of what makes up the Bride of Re-Animator, is when Dan finally says, no, I don't want you. And she goes,
And calls her
screams
a
at him.
monster.
Yeah, she screams at him, what do you want? And she literally tears out Meg's heart and presents it to him and is like, is this what you want? And then she literally starts falling apart because all of her body parts are barely put together and she dissolves into just mush and
Just
gush.
some
And it is
mushy
so awesome looking, but also heartbreaking at the same time. So it's
Yeah, because she's fighting with the other girl that he was seeing. They
Yeah,
start having
Francesca,
they
yeah.
have like a cat fight going on over him, and that's when he tells her, "No, you're a monster."
which we also get the greatest line ever when Francesca, who they met in Peru, comes and meets them at Miskatonic and starts basically trying to date Dan. Herbert comes up to Dan, and it's this perfect shot that I think Brian utilized amazingly, where it's the side of Herbert West, and he just looks out and he goes, "Don't let the little head control the big head, Dan."
He's
Dan's
adorable.
just like, what the hell?
I love Herbert. Captain Needs Some Pizza said, "Love the talking head of Dr. Hill in the original Re-Animator."
And in Bride of Re-Animator, we also get the talking head, but with bat wings on his head, and he floats around telling everyone off.
Yeah,
I know you didn't like that.
it was. I mean, it's not that I didn't like it. It was just over campy, I guess would be the word, if that's even such a thing. It threw me off. I guess
great
maybe.
80s
It was
horror
funny.
Gouda cheese.
I'm not like hating on it. It was funny. It's just it caught me off guard a little bit. I didn't know what to do with it.
I give you that.
And plus, he's creepy. I hate looking at his
I gotta
face.
ask everyone in chat. Please give your opinions. Re-Animator or Bride of Re-Animator? Give us yes or no. Which one you like more?
Re-Animator.
Hey man.
I vote Re-Animator.
Well, okay, and I do know with originally Stuart Gordon was going to come back for a sequel, and it was going to be called House of Re-Animator, and it was going to be set in the White House. That was the original part 2. That idea kind of came back years later with part 4, I think, and it was after they had who was it? William H. Macy, and Stuart Gordon had just done Edmund, which was based off a play, and he was going to be playing George Bush.
Nice.
Because the entire idea was Herbert West takes over the Bush administration with a bunch of different zombies and monsters and stuff like that.
Monstrosities.
Exactly. So I was really psyched with that. All right, we got right here Seawar Cats, definitely Re-Animator.
Thank you.
Oh, dear God, everyone's agreeing with Ash.
Of course, everybody agrees with Ash.
But Seawar Cats always says, because why not Batwings? Batwings are awesome.
Well, he'll give you bat wings, but he still picks Re-Animator.
Hey, man, I take it. Whichever. Whatever. All right,
I'm right.
definitely go check out the Arrow release of Bride of Re-Animator. But for today, our second release is from the ever-loving people at Scream Factory, and that is Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. In this sequel to the original hit film, we see the Sawyer family as they are at it again with Leatherface, carving up people for Paul Drayton to use in his award-winning chili. So tasty, so beautiful,
tasty.
so wonderful. We also got a local disc jockey named Stretch. Unfortunately, she gets a call in from some of Leatherface's victims while he was hacking them away, making her and her station a target for the Sawyer family. after she decides to broadcast the call over the radio waves. Thankfully, she has Texas Ranger Lefty Enright, who's lost his niece and nephew in the first film, by her side to kill the Sawyers and avenge the death of his family. I'm going to let you go off on this one because I know you love this one as much as I do.
Oh, yeah.
Dear God,
Everybody loves this one. Some people refer to it as the crappiest piece of garbage that's like the most genius thing ever. It's hilarious reading what people think of this movie.
I have to say real quick before we get into more Texas Chainsaw stuff, I am Wolfcat. Hello from Ukraine. Hello, good sir. Also, I have Little Bug Rob. Bride is more rad. Thank you, sir. I finally have someone who understands me. So, yeah, as you said, a lot of people kind of hate this movie in a sense.
You love to hate it.
Do you love to hate it, though? I just love it.
I have a love-hate thing for it. I understand what he was doing with it. If you don't understand what he's doing with it, then you're going to hate it.
Well,
The dark humor, that's what the original was supposed to have, was that dark humor, but everybody was so shocked with the imagery and the graphicness of the film that they decided, okay, it's not working in the first one, so we're going to do it with the second one.
Well, and don't you think that it is there in a sense in the first one, but a lot of it...
Especially with the brother, the hitchhiker.
Especially with the hitchhiker. You got hitchies? Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah, and so I think that's the weird parallel is a lot of people don't understand. It's really just what he was filming with that first movie that I think he couldn't really portray that as much, whereas Texas Chainsaw 2 had a much bigger budget.
I mean, yeah, and with this film, I mean, I know it's not as graphic as the first, but it still has its graphic moments and the scenes where you can just cringe and everything else, but not compared to the first one.
Now, as much as I love this film, the second outing for Leatherface was originally going to be by the original screenwriter Kit Carson. It was going to be called Beyond the Valley of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was going to be a whole town of cannibals, and Sally comes back to fight the little town of cannibals.
I would have loved that.
That would have been awesome. I think they need to do that in one of the prequel, remake, sequels, whatever the hell
Since
they're doing now.
Since they keep doing it anyway.
But the coolest thing is we get Dennis Hopper in this chapter, and he plays Lefty Enright, who's Texas Ranger, and he's the uncle of Sally and Franklin, the kid in the wheelchair from the first movie.
Yeah, presumably kid in the wheelchair.
Yeah, presumably Sally has gone insane in an asylum somewhere, and Franklin, of course, got hacked to hell in the first one. And we have Carolyn Williams as her first role ever. And one of my favorite things about a little history on this is she was so scared that she would not get the part that she, in the audition, ran in the room screaming and took the chairs out from under the writer and Toby Hooper, started barricading the doors, screaming that someone was coming to kill her in a great Texas accent. And that's how she got the role, because
that's the way to do it.
She committed so much. And it shows on screen so hardcore because Toby Hooper's brutal with Carolyn Williams in this movie.
Yeah, my favorite scene is when her and Leatherface their first confrontation and he has the chainsaw next to her.
In that little certain soft area.
That little area. And the way she's talking to him, I'm like, girl, just stop.
Oh,
stop.
You're so good. Stop. It's so creepy.
I found that more creepier than him having the chainsaw up against her.
And he's like licking his lips like.
And then making the motion.
Of course. And the other thing I love about this movie, we get our introduction to Bill Moseley, who is definitely one of the greatest horror icons of all time. And his character of Chop Top. Now, a lot of people kind of complain. Yeah, he's scratching himself. A lot of people kind of complain that he's just a ripoff of The Hitchhiker. But looking back at the franchise and going through the storyboards and stuff, we actually find out that Chop Top is The Hitchhiker's twin brother, which I never knew until with the recent Scream Factory stuff, which was released. And supposedly, he was in Vietnam when the first movie was going on, the Chop Top character. And he comes in, and now he's insane, got a metal plate in his head from being blown up in Vietnam, and he's just going crazy.
He's adorable, though.
He's so awesome. The first time we see him, he's lighting a hanger, scratching his head off, and eating it.
He has a wig on, so you're not seeing exactly what he's itching until the wig comes off.
His Sonny Bono wig!
The silver plate with all this infection around it, and he's eating the skin from the top
Deacon
of his
Logic, yes. Bill Moseley is one of the best people ever right there, man.
He's one of the sweetest people to meet, too.
Oh, also, I love that guy. Now, with all that being said, all the love we give this film, the late, great Dennis Hopper considers this his worst film he's ever been a part of. Which, I remember the first time I saw it, I liked it a lot. I was like, okay, this is a fun, goofy, cheesy 80s movie. I understand why people didn't like it as much as the first one. And I always thought, man, he hates this movie so much. It was really bad and cheesy. And I rewatched it with the Scream Factory release and thought it wasn't as bad as I remember. Like the performances are pretty solid, and the mostly annoying characters, like the OU kids at the beginning, they're annoying as hell. But Toby Hooper did that on purpose because he hates those kinds of kids so much that he wanted to see them killed.
Douchebag frats.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to the OU game, and Leatherface just comes in and tears the hell out of
I like
them.
how they do it first though with the body, and he's sitting there.
And they shoot the head off.
And then chainsaw.
So creepy, man. We also get Tom Savini doing the special effects, which Tom Savini, of course, Friday the 13th, Martin, Night Riders.
He doesn't even need an introduction.
He doesn't need an introduction. So this was the most proud accomplishment he has ever had in effects, he has stated before. Which, if you see, he actually got to do the makeup of the grandpa.
Yeah.
So freaky with the slime coming out and everything. One of my favorite things.
Grandpa's nasty.
One of my favorite things they were talking about was Toby Hooper. We went to see Bill Moseley's Chop Top with the metal plate in his head and everything. And he's looking at it, and Tom's like, "What do you think?" And he goes, "More pus." And out of nowhere, Tom Savini, like nothing. Clear or nasty looking? Toby Hooper's like, nasty looking.
Nasty?
I was like, of course, it's Tom Savini. Now, this film also is interesting because while a lot of people consider it to be less than the original, it was released only recently in the late 2000s in a lot of European countries because it had an X rating.
That doesn't surprise me.
I mean, literally, Stretch is wearing that dude's face. That is but that's also one of the funniest scenes because her like friend gets basically his skin torn off by Leatherface.
That poor dude gets tortured.
He gets tortured the whole movie, and he still gets
How
up,
did he live?
missing his skin, hawking loogies left and right, because that's just what he does. That was like his running gag. And he goes, "Darling, don't be scared. I'm not that bad looking." And she's wearing
the
his
way she
face.
looks. I'm thinking Rob Zombie took some inspiration from that for Devil's Rejects when the girl is wearing her boyfriend's face and comes running out.
Right.
That's exactly what that scene made me think of right when I saw it. I'm like, Rob Zombie had to take inspiration from that.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Now, I do know another thing that kind of made me worried about it was Canon Films, the producers, they actually took a lot of money from the budget throughout, because if one of their other films did bad, what they would do is take money out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre's 2 budget to compensate for that. And it's just so sad because even as a maestro as Toby Hooper was at the time, having quite a few films under his belt, he's still getting hassled by the studios.
Of course.
And it's kind of sad, but I also think it's a miracle that he got this film to be as good as it was, on budget, on time, and we still have this classic to this day. So that's why.
Especially with the Breakfast Club poster that they had.
Oh yeah, they wanted to spoof so many 80s teen comedies, and that poster is so infamous because
that's my favorite one.
It's Leatherface doing the Judd Nelson, then you got Chop Top and Drayton Sawyer making the best damn chili in Texas, and you have Grandpa's dead rotting corpse laying across like it's nothing. That was amazing. And so if you guys look online, I don't know if you can find it very well anymore, but there was another film all about Chop Top, which I remember as soon as I saw this movie, like, why don't we have a Chop Top movie? Doing some research. There was a movie that was supposed to be a short film called All American Massacre. It's by William Hooper, Toby Hooper's son. It tells the story of Chop Top and Buckethead, the guitarist. If you guys don't know him, he has a KFC bucket on his head, white mask, and plays sick riffs on guitar. He was in Guns N' Roses for a while. He played Leatherface in this movie. And he's done a couple of songs about Chop Top before, but it was supposed to be like a showcase of William Hooper's effects work, and then slowly turned more and more into a huger, grander movie. And this was the film that linked the part 1 and part 2 for Chop Top and the Hitchhiker, because there are scenes in this movie apparently where Chop Top and the Hitchhiker are hanging out together as twins. So it's out there. I hope one day we can kind of get a release for it, because it's not really an official movie.
They're bringing
or anything.
out stuff now for us to see, so hopefully they can.
That's what I'm hoping too. And it's an interesting concept. I would love to see more Chop Top stuff, especially with the new Leatherface movie coming out with him as a teenager. That would be an interesting concept to see if they took some of the characters from part 2, like the Chop Top, and take Hitchhiker from part 1 and kind of mix them together with Leatherface, because Drayton Sawyer, who you think is the dad, he's their brother, Chop Top and Leatherface's brother. So you have this whole family of cannibals, all
Nasty
brothers.
Cannibals. Oh, 409 said that Canon Films documentary was crazy.
Oh, there's a documentary. I haven't even checked that out yet. I definitely need to check that out. Look it up on the interwebs.
That's something you
he
haven't
says.
seen?
I know, right?
Something Freddy hasn't seen.
It's apparently I'm the worst now. But so
Somewhere on the interwebs.
at the end of the day, what would you rate Texas Chainsaw Massacre to?
6 or 7?
6 or 7?
Just because of the humor, I give it maybe a 7.
I give it an 8, at least. Because Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is the grittiest thing I've ever seen, hands down.
The reason why I like it is because of Chop Top. And Bill Moseley has said that this was his favorite of his own.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite character.
And
in
that's
this.
what started him too.
Leatherface is my favorite in the first one, but in this one it's Chop Top.
Leatherface definitely has more of a... I think they said the progression kind of was... He's a boy in part 1, obviously a big hulking boy.
Yeah.
Teenager in part 2, and by the time you get to part 3, which kind of canon, it's the part 3 is not the best. It's just called Leatherface. Not the best film, but it's the last good Texas Chainsaw Massacre film from those movies. That one, he's supposed to be like a rebelling teenager, 20s, I guess, somewhere around there. So the progression is really weird. And you always have some kind of hitchhiker, chop top character. And in part 3, that was Viggo Mortensen, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Cross-dressing guy with the polished fingernails. And you actually get Carol Ann from Poltergeist as another one of the Sawyer family.
So many Sawyers.
That's actually another good thing that was brought up in some of the Scream Factory documentary stuff on this was the family wasn't named till part 2. You didn't know who they were. So you kind of get the build.
Yeah, you never heard any of the names.
Yeah, and it's all over part 2. The Sawyer family chili. We're going to be put on the map.
That dad was always getting their name out there.
Yeah, Drayton was
Creepy
all
old
about
man.
that, man. So definitely check out Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 out from Scream Factory as of yesterday. Definitely worth the price.
So we've checked out a movie that's been a hit or miss with horror fans, but very dicey with critics, in the recently theatrically released film The Boy. Not to be confused with the Scream Factory release we recently talked about. This film belongs in the killer doll category. An American nanny named Greta goes to an English countryside to escape her past and earns big money watching the son of a wealthy British family known as the Hillshires. Upon arrival, she is shocked to learn that their son Brahms is a porcelain doll. The Hillshires take serious care of the doll and inform her of her list of duties in taking care of the child while they're gone. Not believing anything they say, Greta begins to neglect the doll and she is haunted by a force within the house.
Meh.
This is one of those movies where meh.
Yeah,
There's no other word for it. Meh. It's not bad. It just could have been a lot better.
So I think at this point, we don't like to very much talk about spoilers for movies, but sometimes we also like to save you guys, the audience, from going through a movie and being kind of disappointed. So
we're going to be talking spoilers?
Spoilers all out. Go for it, Ash. What do you guys say about this movie?
Okay, this movie is not like Annabelle, and it is not like Child's Play, because the doll is not alive. And I was kind of hoping the doll would be alive, because, you know, Chucky. Chucky's adorable. Chucky's a little tiny thing that kills people. This doll is not alive. And with Annabelle, you know, you got a force behind the doll. In this case, no, there's no force behind the doll. So, Freddie, you want to say what's behind it?
It is a dude in the walls.
It's
which
the kid 20 years later.
Honestly, it was done a lot better. If you guys ever seen a Kiwi movie from New Zealand called Housebound, it's on Netflix right now. Amazing movie. Basically, this girl is shackled to her house that her parents live in because she committed a crime. And the whole time she's being haunted the whole movie. Best part of the movie, demonic Teddy Ruxpin. I kid you not. It is awesome. But it turns out there's a dude in the walls and it's not really a haunting, but they play it off so well and there's so much stuff in it. You're like, oh my God, this is awesome. This movie, it gives you this great supernatural aspect throughout that they kind of play on the whole time. And then it has one of the coolest things that could lead into this epic supernatural ending, because basically Lauren Cohen, who plays Maggie on Walking Dead, she's the main character in this. Her character has a boyfriend in the U.S.
Ex-boyfriend,
who comes all the way to Britain to mess with her. And that could have been played on so much right there, to the point where he becomes the slasher force in a sense, and the supernatural force could protect her.
He's a big dude, and he's from Vikings.
From Vikings, yeah. He's a big dude. He's scary looking, and he's crazy. And he comes out ready to pounce and kill her, basically, or do something insane.
He's abusive, controlling, manipulative,
and they
douchebag.
Stare down this family portrait of the old couple and the little kid. And there's this epic, crazy sound and flashes of light, and this guy pops out of the painting. And I was, in my head at that moment, I was thinking, dear God, the supernatural force has manifested itself in this hulking monster, and it's got this crazy porcelain face. It's going to be awesome. And then it's like, no, he's just a dude with the doll face that's been living in the crawl space.
And he's pretty much our age, isn't he?
Yeah,
because the kid supposedly dies at 8 years old, and it's it's like 20 years later.
Yeah,
he's our age, been living in the walls this whole entire time, and is magically really strong for someone that's never been out in the sun.
Seawar Cats, dear God, I wish it was people under the stairs. It would be so much better if it was people under the stairs. Also, For Not Glory Hole horror movie. That's Porky's right there. I like that. But yeah, it just falls. It's an interesting concept. I didn't hate the movie.
It had a good build up, and it's making you sit there thinking, okay, is this doll really alive? Because there's things that happen in the movie that make you think, okay, there's something definitely wrong with this doll.
Yeah.
And then the biggest letdown is, oh, there's a person in the house that's been moving the doll around and making noises and has nothing to do with the nightmares she's having and the weird, all this. I was hoping for supernatural.
Yeah, and man, the director's really, he's got a bad track record. It's William Brent Bell, who directed Stay Alive. That was that crappy video game movie where if you played the game and died in the game, you get killed.
That movie.
What the hell is wrong with you?
It was the only movie that's ever mentioned Elizabeth Bathory. Don't even. Yes, it was bad. It had its horrible moments, but I'm a fan of some of the actors inside that movie. But I will admit that it's bad, but I like that movie.
Stay Alive?
Yes. The killer video game.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, but it mentioned Elizabeth Bathory. I was excited that her name was even mentioned, so fangirl. Can't help it.
Oh, good God.
Don't
okay, so barring Ash's terrible taste aside, this guy also made The Devil Inside, which, do you remember that movie, Ash?
I actually do not remember that movie.
It is the horror movie about, the poster was the nun with the little hand coming out of her mouth, and oh God, basically it was all these weird exorcism stuff, and at the end of the movie, instead of ending, what it does is decide, if you want to see the ending of the movie, go check out the real life story on this website.
It's starting to sound familiar.
You don't remember that?
Is this the handheld movie? Is this?
It's a found footage movie, and the ending was go to this website to figure out
with the girl, right?
Yeah.
I remember this movie. I saw it in theaters. Never mind. I remember now. Ashley had a brain fart for a moment. I remember that movie. It had its moments, but overall was a letdown.
Yeah. Well, The Boy, definitely letdown. It's coming out on DVD soon. It's a checkout maybe.
You can watch it and see what you think, but
going from that,
don't get mad at us if you watch it and don't like it.
Going from that crap to possibly awesomeness or more crap. The latest and biggest news is TNT's relaunch of the classic Tales from the Crypt. It began angering a lot of fans to learn that it wouldn't be coming back to HBO, nor would producers Joel Silver or Robert Zemeckis be returning. Instead, the new project would be spearheaded by M. Night Shyamalan and would not feature the Crypt Keeper. Well, it seems fan outcry has finally changed TNT's minds, as they will be using the Crypt Keeper, but based on his original design in the EC comic book series. We thought we'd take this time to hear everyone's opinions on this, which I'm pretty sure all of you have heated arguments about this. We both do as well. And talk about some of our favorite episodes. Ash, what do you got for us?
I have a list.
Oh, she got a whole list.
So we're talking about our favorite episodes. So from, if anybody remembers, season 1, episode 2, All Through the House, which I know is also a favorite of his. There's the greedy wife who kills her husband. For insurance purposes, it's Christmas Eve, and we get Larry Drake as serial killer Santa Claus. Love this one. He's so creepy.
Now, we had just recently received news today, and I wanted to start this segment off with this. Scott Nimmerfro. He was a writer on many of the episodes for a lot of the seasons, and he wrote two of our favorites. He wrote the Death of Some Salesman, which starred Tim Curry in 3 different roles. He also wrote House of Horror, which that was about the frat house that went into the haunted house and got eaten by the sorority monster house. One of my favorites was Kevin Dillon from Entourage, Johnny Drama.
Mine was the favorite Death of the Salesman because of Tim Curry.
And those were 2 of our favorite episodes. Scott Nimerfro died today at the age of 55. No cause of death known. I guess old age or something.
Rumors are saying cancer.
Cancer. God, they're taking everybody nowadays. But we want to take like a moment just to, moment of silence for him. Thank you, Scott, for all the horrors. Now, continuing with that, what were some of the other episodes you really liked that you'd like to see maybe come back in the new series?
I would really like to see Death of Some Salesman, but I don't like it when people try to redo Tim Curry. And for those who don't know about that episode, it's with the con artist guy that goes around selling cemetery insurance so that if you die, your loved ones are covered with like $10,000. The first house he goes to is actually Lily Munster, and she falls for his. She falls for it, gives him the money. He goes to the next house. Apparently, it's the wrong house. Tim Curry opens the door as a woman, and then you meet the husband, who's also Tim Curry, and then you meet the ugliest daughter ever, which is also Tim Curry, and then he finds out that they do not like salesmen.
Oh, yeah,
He finds out the hard way that they do not like salesmen.
So, would you say that's your favorite?
That's my favorite one, besides the Reluctant Vampire.
I love the Reluctant Vampire, but Death of Some Salesman is a fun concept that I don't know if it works completely because
it's Tim Curry.
I love Tim Curry, but Jesus Christ, he plays the fat daughter. It's like
that daughter is so nasty,
and then also the father and the mother, and it's so. I guess for me, it was just so unsettling because every 5 minutes you'd see Tim Curry like.
Yeah, he's playing 3 different characters,
and I'm
talking
just like,
to himself.
Good Christ, I don't ever want to watch this again.
What about the sex scene?
Oh God, hell no! That was the worst.
Freddy turning red.
Christ.
I think that was Freddy's favorite, the sex scene.
Oh,
that
man.
traumatized a lot of people.
Good God. Do you remember the Lower Birth episode? The Origin of the Crypt Keeper?
Yes.
That was my other favorite one. That was 2nd season only, too. And you find out the Crypt Keeper was born out of a freak show where kind of a 2-headed, 2-faced guy, mutant, has sex with the ancient mummy. And they get together and the Crypt Keeper is born. And I think one of my favorite parts is at the end of the episode. You have no idea this is where this is going. That's the origin of the Crypt Keeper. At the end of the episode, it comes back to Crypt Keeper and it's like, I miss my mommy and daddy. It's so great. But that's one of the things I was super pissed off about when they first announced this, that the Crypt Keeper was not going to be returning.
There was outrage when they said that. I was mad because I was really excited when they said "Tales from the Crypt" because, like we mentioned,
give
in that
John
earlier
Kassir
episode,
some voice work again for God's
He even came
sakes.
back on Twitter at them saying, "There's no Crypt Keeper. If this tells the Crypt, you have to have the Crypt Keeper."
That was possibly one of the dumbest decisions Shyamalan has made since Lady in the Water.
I'm glad that you say his name right because I don't call him that. I call him Shyamalama Ding Dong.
What? Okay, so giving some validity to this show and him being the front runner for all this stuff, what are some Shyamalan movies that you like?
I like The Sixth Sense, which is a given.
Greatness.
But I also liked one that most people don't really favor, which is Lady in the Water. And I can't really explain why I favor that movie. It's really weird.
Is it because Bryce Dallas Howard is as pale as you are?
Probably. Pale People Unite. And I'm also a fan of hers, but I kind of like the concept and the storyline. I mean, it could have been executed a lot better, but the story is what got me. I liked that whole concept. At least I didn't say The Village.
So there's a lot of twists in Tales from the Crypt episodes, but I would say they're a lot more, I guess they're smarter, I feel like, than the twists in Shyamalan movies.
Because his twists are predictable. You know that he's going to do it.
Do you think he's going to write any of the episodes? Because he's just showrunner right now. He's not writing.
Well, if he does anything similar to Devil, I forgot to mention that one. I actually liked Devil.
The elevator movie?
Yes. Because it actually caught me off guard. I mean, I knew there was a twist. I just didn't know what the twist was. Because I'm one of those people that tries to guess what the twist is because he's usually easily predictable, but that one I actually kind of favored. You liked Hellions, you can't say nothing.
Okay, dude, you can't hold Hellions.
I'm going to
for me
hold that
forever
against you.
when you're all like, "Oh, there's a devil in this elevator.
We
We're all
both
going to
know
die."
that if Freddy was trapped in the elevator, he'd be screaming like a little bitch, going, help me, and then he dies because I would stab him.
At least I'd go out better than any of the characters in Devil.
I'd hang you.
That's fine with me, as long as I don't have to be in
Have
Devil
the lights
anymore.
sticking out of your eye sockets. You light up.
That'd actually be pretty cool. I'm gonna give you that one.
Kind of needed to happen.
So I revisited another one that I loved, and this is a great cast on this episode. If you guys remember the ventriloquist dummy, Bobcat Goldthwait, who was a comedian back in the days, friggin' awesome, and Don Rickles, they basically play off each other as these comedians, and Don Rickles has this little monster, I guess, twin brother that's growing out of his hand, and that's how he's been doing ventriloquism for all these years. And of course, Bobcat Goldthwait's doing his awkward comedy, like, "It's sorry to do that to you." It was priceless. I loved it so much. The writing team and directing team on that was insane because it's Frank Darabont, who of course started The Walking Dead into television, as well as did the remake of The Blob and, you know, pretty much any awesome Stephen King adaptation. Of course, Richard Donner, who did The Omen, directed this episode.
And the Omen's awesome.
Do we have any lovers of the ventriloquist dummy? Because that is one of my favorite episodes. Good Christ, everything's Kill Freddy on here now. Deacon Logic, I did like Devil. Whatever.
Someone mentioned Unbreakable.
Captain Need Us Some Pizza. Unbreakable is possibly one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. I'm just going to put that out there.
Oh, another favorite of mine was Maniac at Large. Do you remember that one?
Which one was that one again?
The librarian, that when there's a serial killer on the loose and she's in the library and she's panicking, and then there's a twist to it.
That's your cat and mouse stuff you like, though.
I like the cat and mouse game.
That one actually bored me a little bit because I made her mad. But so with the seasons kind of went, the first 5 seasons were really crazy supernatural stuff. Like you got Corman's Calamity, which is about the artist whose drawings come to life. And my favorite part of that one was he draws his wife at one point as this giant evil monster which eats his wife right before he goes out with another hot police officer lady. Priceless. And then you get later episodes which I guess were more into the later 90s after the movies came out. And there was that one season that was completely set in Britain. And it was really weird because they tried so hard to be so serious.
I actually
and more
listed one of those.
Murder mysteries. Which one?
Confession.
Which one was that one?
The one with, what's his face? Eddie Izzard.
That really? And that had Obi-Wan Kenobi in it. Ewan McGregor.
Was he in there?
Yeah, because
he was in there. I really missed his face.
It was, I don't know, man.
It's when he's the screenwriter,
yeah,
and there's a serial killer.
He writes for Tales from the Crypt.
Yes, and he's being accused of being a serial killer. And then you got the creepy detective.
Yeah.
That you don't understand what the heck's going on, and he's like the red herring.
Those seasons, after seeing
there was complaints on those.
Once you see all the stuff in the earlier seasons that's so crazy, it just bored the hell out of me.
What about Pure Horror?
Pure Horror?
The girl that does the really graphic, gory paintings, and she's married to this rich soap guy, and he fires her, so she murders him.
That's more down your line,
bloody
memory lane of I killed my boyfriend. That's all you. Me, I just want the monsters, man. Like we both agree on Reluctant Vampire.
Yes.
Now I will say the one that I love that's kind of more of a serial killer one's What's Cooking. It had Christopher Reeve and his wife opening up a restaurant that sold octopus meat products and octopus sandwiches, octopus a la mode. And Meatloaf was his landlord that wanted to shut him down. And you had Judd Nelson come in, hack away Meatloaf, take him to bits, and started feeding him to the customers. And Christopher Reeve kind of got in on it and was like, yeah, this is good food. Let's do this. And they end up hacking away at Judd Nelson at the end because he tries to frame them for everything. That was an excellent episode. And that was written by Gilbert Adler, who also directed Bordello of Blood, a couple episodes of Freddy's Nightmares, and as crappy as it is, Children of the Corn 3. But I forgive him because Bordello of Blood and Freddy's Nightmares are awesome.
I was going to say Freddy's Nightmares, you're forgiven.
Yeah, that's really all you need. Train Spotting, there we go, for and I like that.
Hashtag kill Freddy, kill him now.
Everybody's about this kill Freddy. Jesus, that's fine. Whatever. I don't care. I don't need to live anymore.
Who's the easier person to kill out of us two? Think about that for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, so that could be some cool stuff for the Tales from the Crypt reboot. I just don't. Do we have? There's a lot of interesting writers out there for anthologies with VHS, and you didn't like Southbound as much as I did,
No.
but you got to admit there are some interesting
No,
stories
it had
in
some
there.
they have stories that would work for stuff like Tales from the
Give that
Crypt.
a 45-minute format. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of writers trying to break in with anthology stuff. This could be the resurgence, I think, not just for anthology horror, which has been doing great in movies, but also for contemporary horror filmmakers and writers trying to get their big
I would
break.
rather him get other writers than him doing it himself.
Oh, exactly. And I would like
Get
to see
newcomers, get people we've had done shows before.
pull a Mick Garris like with Masters of Horror, and he pulled out John Carpenter back out of retirement. You get Toby Hooper, you get all the masters, Don Coscarelli. Get some of them on some of these episodes, because that would be awesome.
And if he wants to do crazy makeup effects, guess who can call?
Tom Serena, just saying. Dude, you can get Screaming Mad George. I'd
There's
even take
so
the
many.
Kyoto brothers. Get some more Critters out there. Which, by the way, I heard a rumor this past week that Critters might get a TV series, which I think could be really weird.
I was reading about that today.
But I don't know, guys. What do you
Critters.
guys think about all this? The Tales from the Crypt.
What is your
reboot.
favorite episode from Tales from the Crypt? I
A
want to know.
zombie clown episode. Oh, there you go. I am so down for that.
People just want to get stabbed. Speaking of zombie clowns, you want to guess what happened to me this past weekend?
What?
We went to a haunted house and there was a zombie clown.
It's like they waited for you right there.
I think they did. I think people just know, oh, Ash doesn't like clowns. Let's throw him at her.
I hope M. Night Shyamalan sees this episode and he's like, I think a zombie clown would be really cool. I think I'll
I
do
already
that.
kind of don't like you, dude. Don't do it. Be pushing it.
Oh, Easter Bunny zombie clowns. In case you guys don't know at home, Ash is deadly afraid of bunnies
I don't like bunnies.
and clowns. So give me an Easter Bunny zombie.
Does anybody
in
remember
clown
Anya
makeup.
from Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
pretty
Because
much her
I
right
am
there.
Anya. I don't do bunnies. Bunnies are creepy. Don't ask me why.
Please let that... Wait, what? Oh, okay. I have someone vying for me. I do like Seawar Cats. Yes, please don't let M. Night Shyamalan write anymore. Dear
Yeah,
God. I mean, I don't think...
I mean, he's probably going to write some of the episodes, but I fear those
If he
episodes.
writes a whole season, I'm out. I'm just like, no, dude. Quit. Ugh. Well, and the thing I think is cool about this, though, is the other stuff coming out of it. Because TNT also announced a pilot order for an anthology series called Time of Death, which Shyamalan will executive produce as well. And this is interesting. It's shot in real time, showing each hour of events, with the first season focusing on slashers. And it's also got another project in development called Creatures. This one's a little weirder. It's about 12-year-old girls who try to cut out a friend's heart to sacrifice her to an internet demon called Mr. Gorgie.
That sounds like an actual thing that happened recently with Slender Man.
For real. And that's probably where they're getting it from.
Sheesh.
And it focuses on them years later after leaving a mental hospital. And it's called the Terror Time-Filled Programming Block that's debuting next year. Creatures sounds interesting. I'm more down for Time of Death. I don't know how they're going to play the aspect of it's hour by hour. I think that'd be really weird. I don't know if I like, oh, there's slashers walking over here, and then he's going to walk over here. I mean, if there's
I love
something...
my slashers, but that's...
If there's something going on like every minute,
Yeah.
like, okay, we're not just going to watch this slasher. We're going to watch his victim over here.
That's too much.
That could give... It's just got to be done right, man, because otherwise we're going to get a crap ton of boring stuff. We're going to get the worst parts of Walking Dead. We're going to get season 2, the filler season.
The filler season.
24 was hour by hour, but you have a lot of stuff in 24, I think, lends itself to that a little bit more. Whereas, like I was saying, what are we going to do? Watch the slasher stalk the streets with... It's going to be Star Trek the movie, where it's just glory shots of the Enterprise, glory shots of some
I would like to
serial
see
killer
things
in a
from the
mask.
point of view of the slasher, the serial killers. I rather see their point of view versus the victim or the person being harassed. I find that more interesting.
Yeah, but in that point, just go watch the remake of Maniac, which we talked about
True.
a couple weeks ago.
Well, I'm saying if they're going to...
That movie is glorious, my good friends.
I like seeing it from the point of view of the killer.
Yeah.
Gives me ideas on how to kill him.
Which always, What do you guys think about this? Is this like something we need at this point? There's so much horror on television. It's all over the place. How much of it is really working? I like Bates Motel, okay. I gave up on the Omen series.
I did too.
Straight up, just was done. So boring. At this point,
I just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, at this point, horror television, you really need a channel like AMC or HBO.
They need Stars, Cinemax. Give it to channels
And-
that we can get the gore and the blood, and if people want nudity, go for it. But at least it wouldn't be censored. Horror cannot be censored.
It really should, and that's what I worry about TNT, because Falling Skies, that was not horror, but sci-fi, kind of in the same realm. It's a little iffy.
They need to stop censoring horror.
Cool effect. Exactly. So
Just stop censoring it. So well, that was our show for tonight. Another horror adventure that hopefully gave you something interesting to check out. Also, you can find us anywhere on the hashtag NerdNinjaNet. If you have anything to add to any of these topics, feel free to continue discussion outside of the show.
social media, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'd also like to remind you to tune in tomorrow on Nerd Ninja TV for the Nerd Ninja Girl Show at 8:30. And don't forget that every Tuesday at 8:30, myself, Joe, and Craig will be talking on the Nerd Ninja Show. Good times we had by all there. She has been Ash Von Horror. I have been your Fright Master, Freddy Ruiz, and we thank you for watching the Nerd Ninja Horror Show.